I understand what's going on here. There's a group of people that wants the NDP to win the next election. There's a group of people with personal agendas, and they are prepared to put their personal agendas ahead of the agenda of the people of British Columbia. They want to put their interests ahead of the interests of our province. And my job is to stand up for the people of British Columbia and to fight for the interests of the people of this province. And I am not going to stop doing that, and I am not going to be distracted from the important economic questions that we have, because that's how you fight for the people of the province. And I'm going to keep fighting for that.
All right, that, of course, is Premier Christy Clark. What's she talking about there? I'll tell you, it's a bit of a bizarre story. Global Television reported last night that some new group has started up to demand that Christy Clark resign as leader of the BC Liberal Party, no matter what happens, and that she do that 1 minute after the polls close at 8 p.m. Tuesday. This dissident group is calling itself 801. Global did not name the individuals behind the movement, but said there were senior Liberals and business sources telling them about this. Now, we do know that a lot of BC Liberals do not like Christy Clark. In fact, many of those folks are what you'd call BC Conservatives right now. Well, our next guest is also not a big fan of Christy Clark. He's Martyn Brown, the former Chief of Staff to Clark's predecessor, Gordon Campbell, among other things. Martyn, when you heard this whole 801 news, what did you make of it?
Well, it wasn't surprising particularly. There's an awful lot of people who have been disaffected by her leadership. It is surprising the timing of it and the idea that they would have something so apparently organized. But the idea that there will be people, no matter what happens with the outcome of the election, there'll be lots of people that will be saying that she should resign. And especially, I think, if she loses, then of course, I think she'll have to reflect on her future.
Winning, of course, is a great cure for discord within any political party. So if she wins, presumably, there'll be less yakking about that. But then, there's I guess, a range of options in terms of how many seats she wins as an opposition leader. She's only done this for 2 years. Is there any way she might get a break saying she's been the leader for 2 years, fine, she'll go sit in opposition and she can come back perhaps in 4 years? In other words, if she, wins 35 seats, something like that, does that get her another crack at it? Do you got a number you want to put on it?
Well, first of all, I want to say to your listeners that this is not an initiative that I've had anything to do with or been part of.
That's a good point. I was going to ask you, Martyn. Thanks.
Yeah, because I was associated with it in a story last night, just visually from a clip I'd done on the radio. But to answer your question, I don't actually think that it has to do with how many seats Christy Clark wins. If she forms the government, she will silence her critics, no doubt, and she'll have strong moral authority to carry on as the leader. I'm not even sure that at the end of the day will prevent a fission that is now in the party from furthering. If she wins, a number of seats more than people are expecting, but still forms the opposition, I don't think that'll stop, the unrest for a second. I think many people will say, it's great if she can win 30 or 35 seats or something like that. I really don't think that's going to happen. But it fundamentally won't change the dynamic, and if anything, it'll probably intensify the challenge within the party, because of course there'll be many people that will be saying she should stay on. She might be one of them. Others will be saying, look, you inherited the leadership. You started with the lead, and you had an opportunity to win. You governed for 2 years, and you lost the government. So either way, she's in a tough spot.
Let me ask you this. You popped up in some conversations I was having with some BC politicos today about the possible transition team for Adrian Dix. And there's some New Democrats suggesting they might like you to join that transition team if asked, or I don't know if you have been asked. Can you speak to that at all?
No, I haven't talked to anybody about that. It's, a long way from my interest right now. I'm thinking about fundamentally the ideas that I've been trying to advance through the ebook, through articles I've been writing, and frankly, I've been supporting whoever will support those ideas. I've said some nice things about the Liberals when they've taken the right strategies, and more often than not, in the last 2 years, I've said things that haven't been as charitable because they've been on the wrong course. But the Green Party's done some good things, the NDP's done some good things, and the Liberals themselves have done some good things. They've done themselves an awful lot more harm, though. And the latest harm are these attack ads, which I actually don't think do them any good at all.
Well, Martyn Brown, I love an independent thinker in politics, and pleased to have you on the program. Thanks so much for chatting tonight. We'll chat with you again soon. Thanks.
All righty. Thanks.
Now, when we mentioned Global broke this news about this 801 group, there's buttons apparently, there's a Twitter account. As soon as I saw this, first thing I did, of course, was send a message to our friend and political strategist, Alise Mills. She's plugged into the BC Liberals, after all. Alise is standing by now. Alise, good to see you again. And a day later, do we know anything more about this 801 group? Is it a fiction? Is it real?
Oh, I'm starting to question it myself. I mean, I think we were all sort of standing in a circle this morning wondering, is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Mm-hmm. And, you know, the colleagues that I work with, my colleagues, the group that I roll with, David, you know, this just isn't their style. It's pretty amateur hour. If anybody wanted to take out the Premier or remove her 3, 4, 5 months ago would have been the time. That's the professional way to do it. And I have to say, people I know on the Conservative side who are being blamed for this today, they wouldn't be sending you a button, David. You wouldn't even know that they were there until you were sort of confronted with them. That's the way it gets done. So I don't know if this was sort of an invite to a coup or what was going on, but you know, really at the end of the day, Conservatives and Liberals have to stand together. It's 5 days before an election. It's pretty self-centered to be able to put out a button like that, you know, stir up the press gallery like that, while all hands are on deck. And even those who were not initially with the BC Liberals have stepped forward to dig in deep for her. And, you know, the party's bigger than one person.
Well, and on the other hand, the big news today from, you know, that was out last night from Global. This morning, people in BC woke up to the headline of the Victoria Times columnist, oh my gosh, look at that. It's a 4-point gap. As a poll of 1,000 people, telephone poll. We haven't seen the raw data from the VTC. They haven't released that. But nonetheless, that must have put a big spring in the step of any BC Liberal today.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, for anyone that's involved in that 801, and I'm not really sure who they could possibly be, but, you know, they have to look at that. How did the BC Liberals get to that? They didn't get to it with just Ms. Clark and her inner circle, the people they are supposedly so angry at. It was a group of people, colleagues of mine on the right side of the fence, that decided this movement was bigger than one person, and everybody jumped in. It's an all-hands-on-deck thing. That's how that percentage has shrunk. And what everyone's looking for this week is to get to the 1 to 2 points, because I want to remind viewers that 4 points is still a solid NDP majority. When it starts to count is that 1 to 2%. I don't know if they'll be able to push it over the edge and get into a winnable situation. I'm sort of hesitant with that, but at least they're coming in with a solid opposition.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting weekend. Alise Mills in Vancouver.
It's exciting.
Yes, no kidding. All right. Well, thank you so much for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David.